So our very first speaker goes by the name of Sebastiaan Kieft. So you see, Sebastiaan is a very peculiar person. He is very interested in psychology, and especially very interested in neurodiversity. Sebastiaan is trying to challenge what we define as normal. What even is normal? That's a very valid question. In terms of success, in terms of belonging, in terms of anything you might envision. What is normal? Without further ado, I wouldn't spoil his talk for you, but can we please give a big round of applause for Sebastiaan as he comes to the stage?
Thanks, man. When I was a child, I was very passionate about my hobby. Playing with Legos. Yeah, I could build and build hours after hours, building my own utopias where everything made sense to me. And I remember my father standing downstairs, yelling at me, "Sebastiaan, dinner!" But I couldn't hear him. And after calling me, he ran upstairs, opened the door, shouted at me, and now I've had it. I'm going to take you to the doctor to get your hearing checked out. Because he thought I was going deaf. Well, good news, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not deaf. The bad news is I was grounded for 3 months. Yeah, he thought I wasn't listening on purpose, but that was not the case. I was just deeply and deeply focused. And that's when I learned my first big lesson. In a world that doesn't understand focus, focus can look like defiance. And in a world that doesn't understand difference, difference can look like disobedience. And that lesson followed me throughout my whole life, throughout my whole career. But something special happened when I was 22. I felt broken before that. But when 22, I was broken, but diagnosed. I have ADHD. Are there any people in the audience who have ADHD? Okay, 1. Okay. Well, statistically speaking, there should have been more people here with ADHD, but maybe you weren't paying any attention and didn't hear the question. Yes? Yeah. Well, the diagnosis wasn't the surprise. The surprise was how long I've been trying to fit in, to shrink, to behave, to force my mind into a mold that didn't match its shape. I pushed, I masked, I burned out. I tried to change my mind, but what if the mind wasn't the problem? What if the mold was broken? See, imagine trying running Windows software on a MacBook. It will crash, it will glitch, it will freeze. And instead of questioning the software, I blamed the machine. I blamed me. Because we live in a world obsessed with self-improvement, with optimization, with discipline, with grit. So I tried to change my mind. I tried to push myself into a system that wasn't made for me. I had to become that one person, the best version of myself, of someone I am not. And maybe some minds weren't meant to be optimized. Maybe some minds are meant to challenge the system entirely. Because my story isn't rare. It's just a version of a much bigger reality. And each brain differs from one another, and you call the variation in brains neurodiversity. And just like biodiversity means, nature thrives through difference. And neurodiversity means our minds do too. And some people are neurotypical. Their brain matches what society expects. And others, like me, are neurodivergent. We process, we feel, and we function differently. And ADHD and autism and dyslexia, these aren't glitches. They're not problems needing to be fixed. They are variations, and they are everywhere. As a matter of fact, 1 in 5 is neurodivergent. 1 in 5. That means in every classroom, in every office, at every dinner table, and even tonight, someone is quietly adapting to survive a world that wasn't built with them in mind. See, I'm not the only one whose brain is mislabeled, misread, or misunderstood. And it's not just a diagnosis, it's not a label or something what's hype on TikTok or something. It's part of the human condition. And that 20% often goes unseen, unheard, and unrecognized. And it's not just their loss or my loss. It's all of our losses. Because ADHD brings creativity, it brings speed, it brings emotional insights, and autism brings clarity, honesty, and deep system thinking. And dyslexia brings storytelling, innovation, and visual thinking. They bring wonder, joy, and creativity into the world. So what if we stop trying to fix these minds and started fixing the systems around them? Because right now the system isn't supporting at all. It's filled with stereotype after stereotype. Like people with autism are supposedly socially impaired, or people with dyslexia are unable to read or write. And people with ADHD, kind of a funny story, are supposedly very bad at relationships. Because you can Google this tonight, Google ADHD and love, you will find article after article stating that I dumped my boyfriend because of his ADHD, or the 10 ways to survive your boyfriend with ADHD. Yeah, I felt broken when I read that. And right now I'm in a loving relationship, and I asked my girlfriend, what do you think? And what do you like about my weird brain with ADHD? She looked at me with eyes better focused than I ever could, and she told me, I like your brain because you are always honest, you feel people very deeply, you always think of the most crazy and wonderful dates to do together, and most importantly, you're always happy to see me. Ah, that's nice, right? Yeah, until I realized she was describing a golden retriever. Yeah, it's horrible. Well, actually, I am that golden retriever. When she's not at home, I really do miss her deeply. And I went her a keychain, going into the door, I jump up from the couch, run to her with a very big hug, tail wagging and everything. It's lovely. But she really likes that. She doesn't just tolerate my ADHD, she loves it. And that happens when you build your environment with your own brain in mind. Everything that once made you too much becomes exactly enough. So that's when I started doing something radical. I stopped trying to fit the mold and started to build my own one, my very own utopia. Not with Lego bricks this time, but with boundaries, with respect, with people who love me, and freedom. My very own neurotopia. A place where rules don't erase difference, but rise to meet it. A few months ago, when I gave a lecture similar to this one, I met a young girl. She was 15 years old, and a few months ago, I met a girl at one of my lectures, similar to this one, and she raised her hand, and she told me she was autistic, was being bullied for it, and she asked me, do you have any advice for younger people like myself? And she looked at me like I had the answer for her, but I didn't. I was once 14 years old as well, and I knew her battle is far from over. So I didn't sugarcoat it, I didn't lie. I told her, you were born into a world that wasn't made with you in mind. And that's not your fault. but it also means you're not broken. Because it won't get any easier. Not for me, not for her, unless we change the system and not the child. We don't just think differently, we speak differently too. We may be using the same words, but they don't mean the same thing. Focus, normal, too much. To one person it means structure, to another it means suffocation. Lazy, I was called lazy my whole life. By my parents, teachers, coaches. But I wasn't lazy, I was understimulated. It gave me the right amount of dopamine, the right drive, and suddenly I'm unstoppable. Or unmotivated, there's another one. But I wasn't unmotivated. My brain doesn't respond to pressure, only to purpose. Or disruptive. But I was just trying to connect with my peers in the only way I knew how. We're not just misunderstood, we're mistranslated. So if we want to build a world where all minds can thrive, we have to think of a shared language. A shared language that works both ways. Yes, society must do better. Yes, they must try to understand us better. But we, the neurodivergent, we can speak up too. Not to apologize, not to perform, but to explain. And it can start with one easy sentence. This is how my brain perceives this world. And that's how we meet in the middle. That's how we build something better. So, what can we do? What can you do? Because this story isn't just mine. Maybe it's your colleagues, your partners, your students, your child's, and maybe even yours. You who have been sprinting at work, just you, the person, you who've been sprinting at work, never knowing if it's quite enough. Or you who sits alone at a company lunch because everything around you is too overwhelming. Or maybe you, the person who had a burnout for 2 years ago and still thinks your boundaries are your weakness. Maybe you don't have a label. Maybe you don't have an official diagnosis. No official reason, but you do know the feeling. The feeling of biting your tongue. The feeling being punished without breaking any rules. Because you don't have to be a neuroscientist to build a better mold. You just need to shift your lens. And maybe inclusivity starts not with policy, but with asking questions. And we can ask these questions at the dinner table, at the company, in your classroom. What makes your mind feel at ease? What gives you energy and what drains it? Maybe a manager sees someone struggle and asks, what kind of support do you need instead of what's wrong? When a parent sees your child struggling, and don't ask, why can't you focus, but what would make your mind feel at ease? And someone stops trying to fix their partner and asks, what lights you up? Because when we change our questions, we can change our connections. When we change our connections, we can build a better mold. So I want to leave you with this. Look around you. Who in your life is still shrinking to fit? What part of your world, your office, your classroom, your home, was built for sameness? What's one rule, one routine, one expectation that excludes someone close to you? And what would happen if you rewrote that? Not for the system, but for the person right in front of you. Because the mind was never broken. It's just the mold wasn't built with all of us in mind. So let's change that. Let's do better. Don't change the mind, change the mold. Thank you very much.